I don't believe there's any room for secular or atheistic morality.
All right, that's interesting too because I see the same things as far as like deterritorialization and reterritorialization happening on the field of morality as well, where you have people who are like, "Oh, I don't believe in God, but I still believe in objective morals," and it's like, okay, you're basically doing the same thing then. Like, that doesn't,
You're not any different.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a very ideological phenomena. It's like really not a whole lot of actual pragmatic action happening.
true. These people do
Yeah,
nothing.
like they just sit around and think they're intellectuals and they're doing something. That's peak liberalism, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and like they think that their consumer choices individually will like save the world, and if you don't live exactly like them, you're a horrible person. That's literally how they think.
Exactly. If you don't feed into the very system that enslaves you, then you're a bum, you're a high school dropout, you're a leech, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's really just the buying of the sheep. I don't really take it as anything serious.
Yeah, it just frustrates me because these people call themselves socialists, and it's like, okay,
Yeah. Oh my god. Every time I hear someone say they're like a democratic socialist, I have to walk out of that room because oh my god. Oh my god. And also like people who call themselves conservatives. It's like here's my problem with conservatism. Like modern conservatives, right?
okay,
So conservatives, especially more recent ones like Trump supporters, they'll like enthusiastically like support like all this technological progress, and they'll support all these like capitalistic policies that will drastically increase the GDP or some shit. And then they'll also complain about the decay of like their conservative values and stuff, even though the capitalistic policies which they support are like the exact same ones that are causing them to rot away. It's yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, Ted Kaczynski wrote a good bit on that. I don't know. I've read through his manifesto quite a lot, but
All right, well, do you want to talk about like that sort of primitivism or like anti-tech decelerationist kind of like? Because I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I used to be more tending towards that side of the like anprims versus like transhumanist debate,
yeah,
but now it's like honestly, I just got more deeper into Marxism and I put it together that like technological advancement doesn't have to be corrosive for society and contribute to the enslavement of man by man. That's just because of the capitalist system that undergirds that technological advancement. And if we put technology like to the use of people as a collective, of humanity as a collective, then in that universe, we could literally use it to reduce the workday time. We could use it to and then raise wages while we and use automation, which everyone is so afraid of because it will kill jobs under capitalism. Under socialism, we could use it to free people of labor. That's my perspective on it. So it's like if we change the economic system in a revolutionary fashion, then technological revolutions would end up being positive things in all of the ways that they're negative in today's world. So what do you think about that?
well, I think you have to view industry and its inclinations on a wider scale. I don't think it's necessarily the capitalistic sort of model put in place. I think industry is self-growing, and no matter what you try to do, you can slow it down. Like I do think that if a socialism were like to be put in place, a kind of socialism, I think it would slow it down, but I don't think it can be halted, mainly because there is finite resources and industry is ever expanding. And especially with an ever growing population, eventually you're going to not be able to slow it down and it's going to become It's going to get to that point where there's nothing else you can do, and either we'll all go extinct, or there will be no like natural organism left on Earth.
Okay, so you basically think that we're headed towards that Landian singularity, regardless of what we try to do, basically. Is that your position?
Well, I think that's a possibility. I think it could go also some other. I think it could collapse as well, but I think industry in itself brings about circumstances that seek infinite growth, even though we are on a finite planet.
Well,
If,
is it industry itself, or is that a feature of capitalism? That it has this
well, what
dream
is
of infinite growth that it
industry?
can't possibly achieve without destroying itself? Because that's what Marx was saying.
Yeah, so what does industry give us currently, and what would it give us under a socialist system? It would give us food, right? Obviously, if we cut, even if we cut out all like the consumerist product, the stuff we don't need, if it's just giving us food and it's building us houses, it's helping us gather resources, and assuming that we don't use eugenics, the population is going to be expanding at an upwards rate. It's not going to be stagnant or slowing down at all. It's going to be going up forever. And with that expansion comes overcrowding. It comes for more demand to um, harvest resources from the planet. We need to build more infrastructure, and eventually we're going to reach the point where we're at again, and it's going to be still infinite growth, and we're going to reach the same problems that we have. It might be better under a socialist system, but it's still going to happen. But yeah,
Well,
but
it seems like that feature of industry, though, and that like slaving away at the service of industrialism itself is like so the whole point of trying to pursue communism is freeing humanity from that, like freeing us from those economic concerns. So like not only would it be gathering resources and food, but like automating all kinds of things that we just find to be like so horrible, and like all of the worst labor in the world would be taken care of by machines because we would collectively decide like, all right, this needs to happen. None of us want to do that, and we have this standard for ourselves and each other to be like, okay, that's horrifying. Like no one wants to do that. So then we will put people to work developing the technologies to do all of those things that people always say like, oh, what about this labor? It's like, okay, well, we can have the fucking robots do that. And like do you not you just it's like you completely took a black pill out of a Star Trek future. You just it's the Matrix. Like that's where we're going. Is that the
well, I think I think it also comes down to it doesn't matter who's running the industry, as long as the industry is running, it's going to head there. But I do think it can be stopped. I think with carefully planned action, it can be stopped. But I don't think it could be slowed down or harnessed for the good of humanity. I think in its very nature, it doesn't matter who's controlling it. If it's being maintained, it's going to progress forward by work, whether it be workers, like bosses,
and it will
robots,
progress
whatever,
towards our destruction is the
towards the final moments of Earth or humanity. Or and then another way it could go, it could also implode on itself, destabilize. But I think that's probably more likely to happen if we continue on a more capitalistic way. And I hope, honestly, that would happen soon. But I don't know.
wow. I think you'd be surprised at the amount of people who are like on the left, like post-left anarchists or like anprims or like all those kind of people who would agree with what you're saying about this. And like accelerationists, like oh,
Yeah, in accelerationism, I mean, I feel like I feel like it's kind of a 50-50. Like if we accelerate it, we're directly hurting people who have like nothing to do with it and don't deserve it. but also like it could get us there way faster, but also it might not, and it might just accelerate us to the singularity. But I don't know.
It's a scary thing to think about, especially with
I know.
Land's predictions. It's like horrible. Like,
Yeah, let's. I hope that motivates someone to, I don't know, try to do something, or at least make us independent from it. I don't know.
well, I
Those are
mean,
those are my thoughts.
honestly, I'm thinking maybe a little bit more recent in the future, as long as there's no like imminent ecological catastrophe that just absolutely floods and burns down like everywhere. It seems to be the case that America is in decline as a world power, as an empire, and as a country, as a political system, as a political idea. It's in decline. It's becoming progressively becoming a failure. And
Thank God.
at the same time as that, it also appears to be the case that China is rising. The opposite
Oh
is happening
God.
in China. So, what do you think about like a civilizational East versus West, like half of the world eating the other, kind of like more recent
I think it'll
future?
be a little more divided than that. Obviously, if anything, it'll probably be like an east, west, south, north sort of thing. I don't think geographical regions could be that united.
Well, if you
But
think
I do
about it,
think
like China will probably have Africa on their side, Middle East on their side, and South America on their side because all of those countries suffer from American and like Anglo imperialism and oppose it and help each other in opposing it. So it's like,
well, they also just suffer from a lack of resources in their own country, and they want industry as well, and they see China that they can offer them that, and it's kind of just a bribery thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But China works with countries like they're actually better on the world stage than America or all these Western countries. Like they actually work, they actually negotiate with you instead of just killing your leader and installing a puppet and stealing all of your shit. You know what I mean? Like,
They
but
they negotiate with you until they don't.
but the
But
libs don't
I see what you're
understand
saying.
that. They just equalize it. Oh, all states are bad.
Well, I think any state that relies on industry and unlimited unpaid workforce, I think is a very uh, it's an institution very much worthy of being torn down. I don't know. And America is one of those. Any industrial superpower doesn't matter if it's Soviet Russia or fucking the United States or anywhere. I think it's worthy of being torn down.
But isn't it an economic fact of reality, as we've seen throughout history, that you kind of need to industrialize your nation in order to become prosperous and successful? What would you like?
But I don't think we should value prosperity and material wealth at such a high value as we do. I think that came along during the Enlightenment with the loss of spirituality as a whole, and I think it made us much more susceptible to capitalism and consumerism as a whole. Really,
But
I think it's a
because of
wrong
those
step.
economic forces, like you have to feed people, and for all of these poor countries,
You
and you look at their rise, it's like if you have a industrialist command economy, you will probably do pretty well if you don't get deposed and killed.
well, but the thing is that I don't think people have a responsibility to feed other people. And I think in a pre-industrial sense, right? People used to be very, very much self-sufficient. They had a farm, they had a house that they would pass down generations, and it would be the same for hundreds of years. And people were life was stable, life was simple. You were happy. You had a farm, and you could feed yourself, and you could feed your family. But now, especially in Britain, where the Industrial Revolution started, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Enclosure Act.
Yeah, yeah. The enclosure of the commons. Yes, Marx talks about this. It's literally
Yeah,
capitalism killed that way of life to
it
proletarianize you,
killed,
turn you into a free worker who has to sell their
and,
labor.
and I don't think that making industry like in a socialist type will fix that. I really just think returning to a rural lifestyle will reverse the
But
damage
how do you
caused.
go back? How do you return? How do you reverse history when people are dying?
Well, I think you just at this point, I don't think that you can convince the masses to do so. I think you would have to do this on a very personal, small level, like going off the grid, becoming self-sufficient. I feel like that's really the only thing you can do if you really want to like be like escape this and you want to be happier and you want your kids to be happier. I think like that's a good step to take, and you with other like-minded people as well, obviously. But I think that's really the only thing you can do at this point. I don't know.
So you basically advocate for like what Tim Pool said that the people who did the French Revolution should do is just go out into the woods and carve out your own little like hovel of a community and just kind of survive as best as you can in the off the grid wilderness. Like,
Live free,
who do
live
you
in
think
free of the state.
who do you think that's even possible for? Like, especially
A
in
lot of
today's
people,
world, like, how do you think this will work? Honestly,
well, a lot of poor people in America are live in rural areas. Like they live out in the countryside, and I feel like that's much easier to do there. If you have something there, even just like a little bit of land, you can turn that into something. And I definitely think environmental and movements and stuff like that should pop up more. That teach people, about self sufficiency and like how you can return to this rural natural life and live off the land is what I'm trying to look for. Yeah, living off the land is what I think should be encouraged, especially with movements and activism. But I don't think a revolution is would be possible in the large scale because I don't think that there will be enough people to do it.
okay, so basically you're saying if you're a mountain man or if you're like one of these rural families who can sort of start a farm and feed themselves and like homeschool their kids, I guess, and all this kind of thing. Like that is the best option right now because of the technological collapse you see imminently coming, and because of the alienating sort of like socially corrosive effects of that society that they are like disconnected from.
Yeah, I think you got it.
All right. Well, that is a very interesting viewpoint because I don't think it's that uncommon. Like, maybe some of the specifics are like more unique, but honestly, like, even people who are on the left don't even disagree with this. Like, a lot of, like,
Yeah, they'll agree with me until I start talking about some other things. But yeah, we'll keep it at that.